What's up, everybody? It's Jeremy, founder of Tampa Bay Veteran Investor Show. And today I have Jared, repeat guest with us here in the Tampa Bay market. And thought it was time for a good update, mostly focused on short term rental space for investors that are doing, some sort of furnished strategy. And it could vary on length of stay, whether it's to a few days to a few months or, even doing 6 or 12 months furnished type stuff. But wanted to touch base because it's been, I think, almost close to a year or at least 9 months since we did the last chat, and still one of our top listened episodes or shows. And the YouTube video as well was one of the top ones still on the channel. And something that we're seeing a lot of activity and people kind of contacting us on different things too, and just the market. And it's always helpful for us to have a little bit perspective on the short-term rental market, even though we don't manage that stuff. We kind of, still get questions about things and trying to guide people that are doing the strategy or thinking about it. So, Jared, welcome back, man. I'm glad to catch up with you.
Hey man, it's always fun to be here. I love doing these, just to share the knowledge. You know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I wanted to start with I guess for people that didn't listen to the previous episode, maybe just give them a short recap of sort of, you know, service area, doors under management, and kind of just how you guys are vertically integrated, and then we'll kick off from there.
Yeah, I think we're at 70 doors currently. We should be at like 140 within the next 90 days. Pretty excited about that. It's always nice to have more, but the workload is always, exponentially larger when you get more. But we
Yeah.
at State Till Door, we're really short term, midterm, a little bit of long term rental management. It's the backbone of our business is obviously the short term side, and I would say we are pretty much a unicorn here in this market. We are vertically integrated with our
Yeah.
housekeeping and maintenance, which really makes us deadly. We've got our own commercial laundry facility, so it's totally different. The level of the operation that we're running compared to the entire market. No one else has what we have. So I do
Yeah.
like being unicorn.
Yeah, it's unique to have that amount of units under management too. Like, I think I'd looked at something you'd sent a while before where like for like sort of private smaller operators, like to have 60, 70, 80 properties is a lot. And be able to be doubling that maybe in the next 12 months is a you might become even like one of the biggest players in the space. And I think where like what matters now too in the marketplace is like you guys having the maintenance and the laundry facilities and stuff and a little bit more control over that continues to make the difference because, with taxes, insurance, everything going up, all the owners keep looking at just NOI. Like, how can I improve? And if the nightly rates or at least in the long term space, like the rents are sort of soft and compressed and they're just looking at any other thing that can be an efficiency and move the needle. So that stuff obviously is helpful from cost standpoint, but also just more efficient on the operation side
Well,
too.
it is fundamentally different than long-term rentals. Years ago, we integrated vertically, the housekeeping and the maintenance because we just wanted to deliver a better guest experience, right? When a guest calls at 10 o'clock at night and says there's an issue, like how can I get it fixed that night? Because if you let it fester, I
Yeah.
mean, imagine being in a hotel, your AC goes out, like you'll either get moved to another room quickly or have it repaired quickly. And we're really held to that same standard. So how can we be most efficient from the obviously the way you can be the most efficient is to just never have problems, right? So you can run a proactive sort of maintenance program, and that's what we run. But things do happen. Things it's hot. It's real hot in Tampa right now. So AC units, man, when they go out, like
The amount of AC breaks are crazy right now with those two, dude.
yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
isn't it state law in Florida? Like, you have to provide heat, but there's no law in the books that says you have to provide AC for long-term rentals. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No,
other than just like
for sure.
making your tenant really mad, but right. But on the short-term side, that's like a nail in the coffin, because you have to actually serve these guests. If if somebody went without AC for just one night, that's a 30% refund on that one night. Plus, you still have the very real possibility you're about to get blown up in a one-star review. And, things have changed. Like I said, years ago, it was just simply about making the repairs quickly to deliver a better guest experience. But now in the age of AI and algorithms, like Airbnb reads all your messages, So if you
Yeah.
have a poor guest experience and that guest sentiment is very negative, Airbnb is putting their thumb on the scale here, and they will decrease your visibility of your listing completely. So you won't get future bookings. So a one-star review today will cost you like 20,000 in future bookings that you will never get. So we really dance for our money and we work for those five-star reviews and they really matter. So all of the tools that we kind of developed internally vertically are what keeps us with those high sort of reviews, and that's how we really crush it. It's the performance. It's the guest experience and performance from our teams that really set us
Yeah.
apart from.
Yeah. What are you guys seeing for for investors that already have short-term rental or thinking about getting into it, occupancy rates, a lot of stuff's very different from the long-term side. What are you guys seeing as like your kind of goal company KPI for occupancy? What do you see like the broader market? Because I know you guys are do better than the broader market, but like what's maybe a range of, hey, you're sort of really, the alarms are going off if you're only hitting, 50, 60% occupancy. You should be maybe closer to 80 or 85 or, anything north of 90, you might be priced too low kind of thing. Like what's some
Well,
generalizations or what are you seeing in the market for occupancy?
well, generally speaking, occupancy across the board is flat to negative, right, year over year. Now, always, I do have to put this caveat here. It truly depends on the asset itself, right? So, for instance, I've got a eight bedroom, seven bath house. It's a luxury home, but that one, because it is such a large asset, it's not going to hit 90% occupancy. It's just not how the game works. Like those larger assets, if they're doing really good, they'll be like 65%, 70% occupancy, maybe. It's more common to hit like
Gotcha.
60% occupancy on those larger ones like that. But then, like, if you've got like a one bedroom apartment, like 100% occupancy, you know what I mean? Like, I can do that. I can make all that happen. But the market as a whole, what we look at is sort of like the booking window. The booking window changes. It's like, what's the average number of days in advance someone books a place, right? And so that number will
Okay.
change different times of the year. So between that occupancy percentage, ADR is like a measuring contest. It's not the golden metric, but we would use RevPal, revenue per available listing. So it's basically like, okay, this unit made $5,000 this month, but how many nights was it booked, right? So you would take 5,000 divided by 25. That's kind of that's kind of how you find your ADR, right? But then RevPal would be take your 5,000, divide it by the number of days in the month. It kind of is more an efficiency metric, kind of shows you what you're doing. So, in the one bedroom space, a RevPal today would probably be like in the downtown corridor area, $59 a night, you know, something like that. But then, maybe you get one of these large eight bedroom, seven bath homes, man, they're renting for like 1,500, anywhere between 12 and $1,500 a night. On the weekends, maybe we drop it down to like 750 weekdays, something like that. But you, you really, your North Star should probably be your RevPal, and that's like a backwards looking indicator. Also, you can kind of compare year over
Yeah.
year, month over month, that type of stuff. But we're
Yeah.
probably, the market average, if you just took the entire market, the Tampa market's probably sitting at 60% occupancy, which is pretty easy to beat. And it's a
Yeah.
wide swinging
Yeah.
average because there are top flight performers like us where we'll hit really high occupancy marks. And then there are the others that just have no bookings. You know what I mean? And so, like your calendar,
Yeah.
it's either feast or famine right now for a lot of people because they just don't know how to kind of operate and play the game.
Yeah. What are you guys paying attention to? Like, you have your own data that you're going off, but what are like some resources? Are there any, uh, you know, newsletters or other YouTube channels that you pay attention to see sort of what's going on in the market? Like, do some of your softwares do the webinars? Like, what are you paying attention to help? Like some of our softwares will do webinars and different things that are like private for us, like as a customers, that gives us information to understand where the market's headed much faster and with like real data. Like, what are you kind of looking at other than just internal information to kind of just see what's going on with
Well,
the market and the broader scheme of things?
Well, in my tech stack, obviously, I do use a pricing tool. I still manage my pricing, right? I don't turn that over to anyone else, but in my pricing tool, I do have access to market data, right? So you can purchase this market data if you want, if you just want to analyze the market, which in my business, of course, yeah, I definitely analyze the market every single day. But there are other resources. Now, the data that they have are is not always, perfect. You kind of got to take it
Sure.
with a grain of
Yeah.
salt.
Just gives people an idea. The
Yeah,
rentals, the Zillow's estimate of short-term
yeah,
rentals.
yeah. I mean, like there's Air DNA. Like I don't trust that data personally, but it's out there, and if you know how to use it, I'm sure you can get better data. But I'd say to the layman, like none of it's great, and there's going to be nothing that's publicly available that's great. So what I do, sort of my approach is I take maybe 15 different, 16, somewhere in there, different data inputs from different places. Like I am tracking the domestic flights into Tampa International. I track the volume of cargo. Like I'll put all
Dude,
that stuff
also
on paper.
best Instagram to follow is the Tampa airport, bro. It's so
I
funny.
love them, dude.
Shout out to the
Dude, I
how
don't know who
often are you
does their
chasing
social media
changing pricing, you know?
every single
Yeah,
day. I mean,
it's
every
great.
day
You know,
pricing changes.
one thing that we started doing was so normally we might be like on a weekly rotation, right? We're sort of, we look at our all our vacancies multiple times a week, but we might just wait, 7 days between each, just like a rough rule of thumb. And just in the last 30 days, I've been thinking a lot about this where we're just gonna be adjusting prices quicker and more aggressive or just more frequent than that because, if we're doing that 4 times a month, you know, we can get to 5 or 6 times a month by just decreasing that a little bit, doing it let's say every 5 days because the tools we have are better. The feedback we're getting is quicker. We know that the marketing's doing better than it has because we made some recent changes. Now that we have faster feedback and better feedback on some things, increasing that I think is really gonna help us get our occupancy up a bit more. But, does your dynamic pricing do you set kind of like buffers where it can auto change sort of within guidelines that you give it? Or like how quickly is that happening? How, somebody's doing it themselves, how often should they, weekly, I'm assuming at least weekly, they need to be tweaking that, if not more often for weekends and weekdays. Like, how do you think about that?
Well, I, in my pricing tool, obviously you set sort of a base rate, something it's sort of an arbitrary number, but you set your base rates based on the market around you. And so, for this specific type of asset, it may, you know, be comped to these other listings, right? And their base rates are here, here, here. So we kind of want to make sure that we're within market tolerance, right? But then we also have a lower and an upper bound, right? So like, at the end of the day, like some homeowners are not going to want you to price their home below this certain arbitrary number because to them it feels like it's just too low, right? So sometimes, you
Mm,
kind of have to
yeah,
work through that. But if I have free reign, right, like I'm not going to rent a place out for, a dollar, a night. It's going to be respectful, and it's also going to be within the
yeah,
market limit. Like I read the white papers for every single update that those data analysts and scientists at Airbnb put out. Okay. And I know what they're doing. They have sort of a feedback loop where they want to match specific units with specific guests who are actively looking. And part of their feedback loop is
yeah,
price tolerance. So if your unit is outside of 10% of the market's range for the same day, same type listing, Airbnb is just going to hide your listing. So you're not even going to get seen. You
yeah,
won't get booked. So it's incredibly important for you to be competitive on pricing. You can't just like set your rates sky high and then, you know, you're just not going to get seen at that
yeah.
point. They're going to increase your visibility artificially and you just won't get booked. So, but no, I do use the pricing tool. Obviously, it makes my life easier, but how many times a week am I touching it? I think it depends on the operator. Obviously, it truly depends on how you configure it and how you have your own pricing strategy set up. I mean, this is, we're in 2026, man, you can almost automate everything. So,
That's what
I
I'm
don't
saying. Like,
have to touch it
I
every
would think
day.
that it's probably been happening for a while, or, tools are gonna be coming, like, your current software stack's gonna put out stuff that allows you to sort of set guidelines and guide rails or, maybe even offer stuff if somebody's like pretty interested and they're clicking through certain clicks and they do enough, spend enough time poking around dates on a certain property that you have that like maybe the system even knows, okay, this they've sat and looked at this listing 5 minutes longer than the other person. So we're actually going to offer them like a
But you're
10 or
talking about
20%
like
discount because we know that it's likely to book and just like intelligence
you're
around
talking
the
about like
pricing is probably
like
something that's
airline pricing.
there.
I would say the short-term
Yeah, like
rental
that's I'm
industry
sure
does
that
not
comes will
operate
come to
that.
your space if it's not there yet.
I don't know if I would want it, to be honest.
No, it'd be stuff that you could, like, maybe custom set, but yeah, it's just it's really cool to see. I mean, we've probably saved upwards of 2 grand a month on different things of current softwares offering new features or just realizing like, "Hey, this used to be like, you used to pay for this little silly software then with just people building their own stuff, just
Building
making
your
it
own stuff
way
is
more
definitely the way to
competitive," which
go.
also makes it easier for do-it-yourself investors are gonna, you know, have more power and a lot of those guys weren't gonna hire us in the first place, or at least in this and maybe in their current scenario. So maybe some of these tools just gives do-it-yourself investors a better chance to sort of operate. But I'm excited to see over the next 12 months because there's been a lot of changes in our industry the last 12 months, and I'm sure it's just for the short-term rental side too, where this stuff helps us as operators give a better service to resident experience, to renters in the properties, to pricing, to all this stuff. So I think that technology is something that probably wasn't looked at as a way to increase NOI that I think is going to become more relevant over the coming months on, really driving change. And the owners may not understand really that that's sort of happening behind the scenes, but that their properties are leasing better, faster for longer, higher renewals, like all that sort of stuff I think is going to be a
I
result of
think what it's
some of this
gonna
tech
do
stuff
is
that we're coming into
is
play.
it's I think this technology that's coming out like this, it's what it's actually gonna do is, it's going to end up hurting the DIY person, and it's going to benefit you and I more. Just think about the DIY person, right? Like, they're not paying a substantially high software cost every single month, right? But you purchased that software because it definitely made you more deadly, right? Like, why else would you have it?
Yeah.
Like, so like it's going to widen this gap in performance between DIY and professional operators for sure. I mean, I see
It
it in
brings
my
up a good point because there's a client that we just brought on that's like, "Oh, I don't have to use QuickBooks anymore." And she was like, "That's almost worth your whole fee." She told me that. And, her rental's over 3 grand a month. And she's like, "Oh, what a blessing. I don't have to worry about QuickBooks Online anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, people don't factor in just all that little stuff when you so and with Claude, Grok, ChatGPT, whatever it is, like, you're gonna have software costs if you're doing it yourself, even if let's say it's, still somewhat minimal. But when you start to factor in your time, the bookkeeping, all this extra stuff, and then just paying a property manager, that might also be something that just pushes people to us because yeah, you could do it yourself, but then you have to manage the tech stack, and then they all have costs, right? So it's like, are you really saving money in the grand scheme of things versus just like, that might actually push some extra people to us where it's like, yeah, you could build it yourself if you want, but this when you start factoring your time plus the hard costs you have now on some extra software, you know,
well,
paying 8% isn't too bad.
that's obviously one factor, right? But then like how many people do you know that DIY for X number of years and then eventually they're burnt out. They're just like, I'm done with this. I'm turning it over, you
Yep.
know? Like I see that
Yep.
constantly. I see that constantly with other
Yeah.
managers.
That's another thing too. And there's a report, we haven't really published any content around it yet, but there was a report where I think it was 500 landlords were interviewed, a huge survey, a lot of money spent on it, and, the difference in, demographics between, like, baby boomers and Gen Z and millennials and all this stuff, like, the younger you are, the higher likeliness you are just to hire it out. Use technology, be okay with it, be okay with AI interacting with your tenants, your resident experience, like, you're okay with a lot of the stuff that's coming out, you're more likely to outsource, like, so there's some big shifts just happening with that stuff too, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think the younger demographic is definitely going to embrace technology a little bit more than obviously the boomers. But I see a lot of people who are just they're really talented. When it comes to a tech type app or whatever. Like some people are just like really good utilizing technology, and there's a huge fall off. Some like somebody who's younger may be more willing to sort of babysit the tech than someone who's a lot older who's like, I'm just gonna pay the subscription so I don't have to look at it again, you know?
Yeah. I think that plays into and I wanna touch on amenities here next, but I think that technology piece is something that's probably overlooked by people on because a lot of the people that are booking these properties, the resident experience, like, it needs to be a frictionless experience when somebody comes and stays at a place, and technology plays obviously a huge role in that, I don't think it can be sort of said enough that the importance of using it and making sure you're using the right tools and staying up to date on the right technology so that when residents are booking your properties, they're moving in, they're moving out, their whole setup when they get there, problems when they are there, you know, it, I can't even
You bring up
imagine
a
like
good point
just
there.
the reactiveness you guys have to have.
You know, you bring up a really valid, like really, really good point there. You mentioned frictionless experience, and you know, I'm sure you and Gloria have like your own favorite restaurant, right? Where like you guys go there, I don't know, maybe it's like your date night spot or something. Like I think everybody kind of has their favorites, right? But like there's a reason you go there, you know, and it may not be the food itself. It may be that every single time you go there, you have a consistent experience. Maybe it's an excellent consistent experience, but like usually when you go somewhere and you're let down, you don't go back, you know? And so to be able to operate at scale and provide a consistent guest experience, the systems behind the show is what will make you or break you. So like, you know, if you got a 9 to 5 job and you're out here trying to self manage and do it yourself, and you know, you got kids or whatever, like life happens. And what happens when you're not available in that one 3 minute time window when you're taking a shower or something, you know, and all of a sudden you've missed that emergency call and you've really, you know, pissed some of these people off. Like they remember after Charm remembers and they won't come back. But I think, you know, just take a look at my Google business reviews, man. I got a lot of happy guests, you know, I've got thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of guest
Yeah. And like
reviews. It's really awesome.
something that's new for us too, which you might have at like a property level. I would imagine that your software lets you do this, but one of the tools we recently switched to, which is more on the application leasing, like residents, potential tenants booking showings on properties, a lot of more automated responses that are very intelligent coming from our team that are, focused on all the same questions, right? It's like our team doesn't need to be answering the same application question, 100 times every week on do you allow this or do you allow that? So that's small stuff where you're able to train the information and maybe for you guys at a property level, when a resident ask a question about something or thinking about booking something, software can pull information that's property specific and respond to the resident on these are the amenities, these are what's included. This is, and so these, as they're chatting, I'm thinking text function, right? They're chatting with something behind the computer that's giving them property specific responses. And for us, it's been obviously a big improvement. Just speed to get people to book appointments, get applications, all that sort of stuff. It moves the whole funnel down, and those are things that are exciting for us to see. So I don't I don't know if that exists in your industry on, if it's just a team member that's actually talking back property specific responses, or if you're able to say, hey, 80% of that, and then when it seems to get off the rails a little bit, then it just can get flagged for a team member to jump in and actually respond. But a lot of that stuff, again, is creating that fast response to to shorten the time window from somebody looking at your Airbnb to booking it. That whole flow, just trying to condense that, and that's where I see some of that improvements that we're
Well,
experiencing now, which I imagine is the
you
same
know,
for you guys.
I will say it's incredibly difficult to operate a hospitality brand, right? These guests, they do demand a lot. And sometimes the best thing that you can do is lead. For instance, like before things get out of hand, like maybe the way that we talk to our guests, maybe we can lead them down a path that allows them to enjoy the experience. So we create that frictionless process with some of those automations, right? But I still wouldn't rely on sort of an AI bot, sort of, or an AI
Mhm.
agent to close. You know what I mean? Right? When we take something that comes in from an inquiry, I don't want an automated response immediately for that. Right? The first touch point, like my workflow from the time somebody books until the time someone's already checked out, it's like 14 touch points through maybe the booking platform that they booked on, email, and SMS. I want to hit them from multiple different
Mhm.
angles throughout that journey, but it can't just be a robot doing all of it. We can have some automated responses at certain intervals and at certain times of their stay. But from initial inquiry, like, I mean, how many times have I probably heard, someone say, like, hey, I really like your place. How far are you from the beach? And I may have the miles and time from the beach in the titling listing, where it's in there, right? And AI could technically pull that, from the information it already knows about the property, and it could tell them. But sometimes certain people want a little bit more of a personalized approach. Like, where's the
Right.
excitement?
Yeah.
Did you thank them at all for reaching out? Like, do you genuinely care about why they're coming here? And so I want raving fans. I want people to come here not just because they love, the area or maybe our specific unit, but because they enjoy the service that they got from us. And it's impossible to
Yeah.
replicate my sort of flow and process there. Because what it truly is, it's hospitality, it's personal touch service. Like, these people want to be served,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's going to be real hard for any AI to do that in a way that doesn't come off, with M dashes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
people know
Yeah,
when
for
they see
sure.
M dashes, like, that's AI. Like, and they're not going to love it, not like they will
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah, it's finding the right mix of the like you said, the touch points where it's, hey, sending out the keypad code doesn't need to be somebody doing it, right? It's, those sort of pieces where you can automate, and it's like anticipating the user experience as, for us, it's like, okay, well, every tenant for the most part is gonna have to set up utilities, right? And they're gonna have to get the deposit, and they're gonna have all those same steps that they do, and it's generally the same for, most of it, unless there's property specific stuff that they need to know about. But it's kind of all continuing to think about that piece of it and how can we change it? How can we make it a little bit better? Like you said, communicate in different ways and, improve the overall experience. When it comes to, investors that are looking to just shift gears a little bit on, I see a lot of new builds happening all over the place. More and more investors, it seems like in my circle are sort of doing them. If you had a clean slate on a piece of land and you were building a property for short-term rental with, let's say, a budget up to, $1 million or something, what would you think the better bath would be if, your preferred bed bath and amenities if you had a decent sized lot where you could fit a few things? Like, what would you say? It's like, man, if I could spend up to that and build something from scratch, this would be like what I think the best asset for $1 million or less, or maybe it's north of 750, like, and that higher range that's going to really do well. What do you think bed, bath, and amenities are?
Um, am I being forced to purchase? Like, do I have a 1031 exchange, like, expiring and I have to buy, or
Just
because
assume you had a
in my
million bucks in
experience,
the bank and you're just like, all right, I got a year to build something and I want to build like the perfect thing. So I'm going to do, 5 bed, 4 bath, because I could probably fit that, in, you know, I don't know, 3,000 square feet and still have room on the lot for a pool, a pickleball court, small little putting green, and I could fit,
I
something
might
on
break your heart.
a small, decent sized lot.
I might break your heart, dude. Today, like, in Tampa, like, we're both obviously right here in Tampa. So, like, I'm talking specifically in this market. Now, this changes. Every single market is different. The same Tampa market today is going to be different from the Tampa market 12 months from now. So take this with a grain of salt. But in today's market, $1 million, I'm buying this. I'm not buying a vacation rental today, right? Like, there are many, many reasons why people are still buying them today. One of the major benefits is they want that short-term rental tax loophole. They want to write off their W-2 income. And that's a really good one. 100% bonus depreciation really helps you do a cost peg. You write it off, and it works out. I've got clients that are literally doing it as we speak. And that's a really good one. But if I had $1 million in the bank today, like, I don't know if I would do a new build. New build is nice, obviously, but quality of the builds, man, I don't know about that. Not for $1 million. And then this market is kind of a tale of two markets. You've got a luxury market that is performing really, really well here in Tampa, and then you've got sort of the everything else market. So in today's market, go big or go home. If you've got 1 mil in cash, get a loan and do more.